that somehow or another they moved from Egypt. I mean, this thing's huge. This huge stone obelisk. Is there an Egyptian one from Egypt?
It's huge.
From Egypt?
Yeah.
Whoa. No shit.
Yeah.
When was that one put in?
Consider a needle as the key to one of history's greatest love tales, one involving betrayal, power, and fortune beyond measure. The Needle of Cleopatra, an ancient artifact lost in time, is more than just a piece of metal. It's a tribute to the ingenuity and imagination of a once mighty civilization. Join us as we unravel the mysteries of this fascinating treasure and explore the unknown stories that lay beneath its surface. But did you know that something remarkable has been buried behind this obelisk for years that even Joe Rogan has recalled in his podcasts? And no one is sure what it signifies. So if you're curious about that, you must stick with us to the end of the video, so keep an eye out until the end. First, let's get to know what is Cleopatra's Needle exactly. The two old Egyptian obelisks that make up Cleopatra's Needles are now in London and New York City. During the New Kingdom, the obelisks were made in Heliopolis, which is now Cairo. The 18th dynasty Pharaoh Thutmose III and the 19th dynasty King Ramses II wrote on them. Later, they were moved to the Caesareum of Alexandria, which was an idea of Ptolemaic Queen Cleopatra VII and is named for her. They stood in Alexandria for almost 2,000 years until 1877 and 1881, when they were moved to London and New York City. Together with Pompey's Pillar, they were called the most striking monuments of ancient Alexandria in David Roberts' book Egypt and Nubia, which came out in the 1840s. Cleopatra's Needle of New York. On February 22, 1881, Cleopatra's Needle of New York was put up in Central Park. It had been given to the U.S. Consul General in Cairo as a gift from the Egyptian Khedive, which is like a viceroy, to thank the U.S. for staying neutral while Great Britain and France fought over who would run the Egyptian government. In 12 BC, the obelisk was moved from its original location in Heliopolis to Alexandria, where it was put in the temple that Cleopatra had built to honor Mark Antony. Later, the obelisk fell into the sand. This was a good thing, though, because it saved the hieroglyphs for experts today. The pharaoh's history was kept safe for 3,000 years by the dry air of the desert. The column has not been taken care of as well in the US, which is a shame. Since it got here, many holes have appeared and the hieroglyphs have faded. This is probably because of the rain, snow, and acidic air in New York City. In 2011, Zahi Hawass, who was then the minister of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquity, said he would take back the obelisk if it wasn't better cared for. If the Central Park Conservancy in the city of New York cannot properly care for this obelisk, he wrote in an open letter to New York officials, I will take the necessary steps to bring this precious artifact home and save it from ruin. In reaction, the city paid $500,000 to have the obelisk fixed up. The obelisk in London. The Cleopatra's Needle is near the Golden Jubilee Bridge on the Victoria Embankment of the Thames River. The ruler of Egypt and Sudan at the time, Muhammad Ali, gave the monument to the government of the United Kingdom in 1819. He did this to honor the British wins at the Battle of the Nile in 1798 and the Battle of Alexandria in 1801. Even though the British government was grateful for the gift, it didn't want to pay for the very expensive cost of getting the obelisk to England, so it was left in Egypt. Sir William James Erasmus Wilson, a well-known anatomist, didn't pay for the obelisk to be moved until 1877. It cost about £10,000 to do so. It was put back up by the Thames in 1878, and two figures of sphinxes now stand guard over it. The obelisk was still standing after 3,500 years of fighting and struggle. During World War I on September 4, 1917, a German bomb fell near the monument. This was probably the closest it came to being destroyed. The base of the obelisk and its two sphinx friends were broken, but the obelisk itself was fine. The damage was not fixed, but a sign was put up to remember it. Zahi Hawass has made the same threat to London about their obelisk in 2018 as he did to New York in 2011. He said, I went to see it yesterday and I was ashamed. If they don't care, they should return it. In reaction, the cabinet member for Environment and City Management on the Westminster City Council said, one of the most famous landmarks in Cleopatra's Needle. Because of this, we clean and polish the bronze parts of the obelisk often and have put money into its repair in recent years. During the Blitz, bombs hit the obelisk and caused damage that's now part of its past and won't be fixed. The obelisk in Paris. The Cleopatra's Needle in Paris, France is also called the Luxor obelisk, and it stands in the middle of the Place de la Concorde. In 1833, Muhammad Ali gave this pillar as a gift. Unlike the British, the French didn't mind how expensive it was to ship the stone monument, so they got to work getting it to Paris. King Louis Philippe put up the Luxor obelisk in the middle of the Place de la Concorde on October 25, 1836. It was put on a plinth that was made for a statue of King Louis XVI riding a horse, but that statue was destroyed during the French Revolution in 1830. The original base the obelisk stood on in Egypt had 16 fully sexed baboons on it, but the Parisians thought this was too risky to show in public. Today, you can see the original platform at the Louvre Museum. The metal top of the obelisk, which was called a pyramidion, had been stolen in the 6th century BC. So in 1998, the French government gave the column a gold leaf top. The three ancient obelisks, known as Cleopatra's Needle, all point to the sky and are happy to show the world that they are from Egypt. Egyptian beginnings. It might seem strange that the obelisk was moved, but Cleopatra's Needle has a long and interesting history that led to it being sent from Alexandria, which was known as Cleopatra's royal city, to London. It was made of basalt from the area around the Nile in 1460 BC for Pharaoh Thutmose III. It stood in Heliopolis. At first, there was only one block of text on each side of the obelisk. However, Ramses II added other inscriptions on either side of the original ones to show how important his wins were as pharaoh. In 12 BC, the needle was moved to Alexandria and put inside the Caesareum, a temple that the Romans built at Cleopatra's request. In later years, they were taken down, which was a good thing because it kept most of the hieroglyphs from getting worn away by the weather. Okay, but I don't know how on earth they got it to London. A few 100,000 years later, the British were to get Cleopatra's Needle. Even though the government was pleased by the gift, they decided they did not want to pay for the obelisk's long and difficult journey to London. But that didn't happen until 1867, when James Edward Alexander was in Paris visiting Concord and thought offhand that London could also use a big Egyptian obelisk. He had heard that the man who owned the land where the British Needle stood in Alexandria planned to break up Cleopatra's Needle and use it as building materials. It's safe to say that he was furious about this, so he enlisted the help of his friends, who gave him money to pay for sending the needle over. So the needle's terrible trip on the sea began. When Cleopatra's crew got stuck somewhere near Spain, Olga's captain, who was in charge of pulling the needle, sent some people from his ship to save them. The rescuers were killed, and their names are still written on plaques at the base of the obelisk in London. The workers on Cleopatra's boat, on the other hand, were saved and taken to safety near the Bay of Biscay. It took a while for the obelisk to get to London, but it finally showed up on the Thames in 1878. When Cleopatra's Needle was winched into place, the government could finally take a sigh of relief. Now let's move on to that artifact that is buried inside the obelisk. There's a time capsule buried under the obelisk. Even if you don't believe it, there's a treasure chest hidden deep under the needle. When the obelisk finally got to the city, the Victorians put a time capsule there to mark the event. People say there are children's toys, razors, railway books, copies of the Bible, a portrait of Queen Victoria, and strangest of all, 12 paintings of pretty ladies that Captain Henry Carter chose himself. We don't recommend digging it up though, because you might end up in the Tower of London. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed discovering the secrets of this ancient artifact and the stories it holds. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting adventures through time and space. Until next time, keep exploring.